Monsters, Inc. takes place on May 29th, 2001, and therefore concludes on May 30th. With this information, we can deduce that Monsters University takes place... I'm just fucking kidding. I didn't do that kind of math. I'm pretty sure that Mike has a calendar in his room that I could figure this out on, and I'll add that in here if I can figure out that date right here, but I didn't actually do that yet. For our first foray into the mind of someone who overanalyzes movies, we are going to take a look at the Monsters, Inc. and Monsters University movies. We won't be talking about the show, because I haven't watched the show at all. We've watched the movies so many times because it's the first movie that my son, Sully, actually wanted to sit through. We graduated from YouTube shorts and just random shit to a movie. We've watched Monsters, Inc. probably 3 times a day for the past month and a half. And Monsters University came in at about half a month ago. So, we've watched it a lot. I've felt these inconsistencies. I've seen these inconsistencies before, when I had seen it as a kid and everything. But now as an adult, I really can piece them apart. Let's get into the subject matter here. Little stupid details. Mike negates the prequel movie in the first minutes of the original movie when he says Sully has been jealous of him since the 4th grade. Yeah, so there's gonna be a lot of that. The prequel idea is good in concept, but it fucks cheeky lines like that from the original movie, and there's a ton of them. And I'm the guy who notices every single one. Maybe not every single one, but a lot. You might be a person who notices that too, which means you also noticed that in Monsters University, it's well established that Sully comes from a long line of scarers. It's also well established that Mike is a huge fan of scarers. He has 6,000 mint condition cards. How the fuck does Mike not recognize Sully or make it known that he knows who his family is? I get you saying, maybe he did and he just never said it. Bullshit. If I met Duncan Jones and he wasn't even famous yet, I would still shit my fucking pants right then and there. Well, damn. I refuse to believe that Mike would be so adversarial to Sully, up to the point of like the mid-scare games. The dean is an asshole for no reason. I hate her. God, I fucking hate the scene. Anyways, hey, do you notice the numbers on the big board don't make any sense? Because I did, and I do every time I see the movie. What does this mean? Why do I need to know? Because it's goddamn there, and I have a need. What the fuck are these representing? Okay, here's a sensible number. Surely this is one we can rely on to never be compromised. Back to those numbers. Randall scares 1 kid, and his tank goes up, but it doesn't fill up all the way. His scare total goes up 116 points.
Sir? What? Look.
Sully scares between 23 and 14 kids at the slumber party, and he fills up between 9 and 21 tanks.
Slumber party.
His total then goes up 218. I reason my numbers because the scare totals change from 67 to 92 between when Randall scares his kid to when George is attacked by the CDA. So factoring in those 2 kids we know Sully did not scare, we have a potential total of 23. But there is a chance all the other doors were active, so there would have been 9 other kids potentially scared, so 14.
The numbers, what do they mean?
No matter what, none of these numbers make any sense or add up at all. Mike and Sulley break a door and fill all the tanks in the storage room, 163 at least, with the screams from 5 park rangers. This has to be Canada, by the way. The rangers don't have guns. If Sully scared 14 kids, which is the bottom number at the slumber party, how didn't it create a dimensional rift, and how did it only fill up between 9 and 21 tanks? We are to assume kids' emotions are more powerful, because, you know, kids and shit, then it should have shattered reality when he scared that slumber party. Even if children's emotions aren't necessarily more powerful than adults, it should have done insane numbers on the scare board instead of some 218 bullshit.
The numbers measure.
Jesus, they filled over half that number in tanks from the adults. Should they just be scaring adults? Fuck! Honestly, that is my only personal problem from the first movie, just for me, just me, is the numbers.
The numbers measure. What do they mean?
I always get fucking hung up on the numbers from that scene when they're doing the scares and the scare totals and stuff. That all being said, Sully should have been able to flush Boo's toys down the toilet because, you know, monsters probably take monster shit. Back to other inconsistencies. Why does it matter if a kid cries when you try and scare them? The dean makes a point to get mad at Sully because he would have made the kid cry, but Boo makes the lights change when she cries in the first movie.
Oh
Do all human emotions create power for the monsters? Could something be more powerful than laughter? Are adult emotions stronger than kid emotions? The second movie fucking pisses me off. Sully says he learns everything he knows from Waternoose, and then he does the old Waternoose jump and growl. He beats Randall by doing the jump and growl in the competition. The prequel movie adds more questions to the first movie. I refuse to believe that Mike and Sulley would be scared of Boo if they did that shit in college. If I fought 5 adult bears and won, a baby bear wouldn't scare me. Also, their dean says they did something no one has ever done before. They surprised her. The dean is an asshole for no reason. If I was in college and I broke cold fusion and it happened to do a little damage to a single room and break an outlet in someone's clay project, I wouldn't get expelled. I'd get a fucking grant from the government. There's no way they'd get kicked out after they created more energy at one time than anyone else has. Which gets me back to why I hate the prequel idea so much. Mike and Sulley were established characters based on the first movie. Sulley is like Superman, super confident, super nice, super chill, always on top. Mike is his hype man, and he's always been by his side, and he loves it. I love that. I love the buddy aspect. I love that they established that they've known each other since the 4th grade. A lot of people have a childhood best friend. I get that everybody has a college buddy too, but a childhood best friend is different. The intro to the first movie is the best thing Pixar has ever done for a movie too. Fight me in the streets if you disagree. But no, the door breaking also leads to another huge plot hole that has been established by both movies. And it would have helped make a better sequel movie. Monsters can get back after being banished. In both movies, it's established that a monster can break back into the monster world after being banished. That would have made an infinitely better movie. You get 5 of them. A vampire-y dude, a werewolf, a creature from the Black Lagoon, a Mothman,
and one other thing.
And you have them break back into the monster world, kick Mike and Sulley out for whatever reason, and then maybe they're like kidnapping kids, or they want to scare adults because they know they've got more power in them, but the other monsters, like the higher up monsters from back in the day that originally banished them because them scaring adults made the adults want to go to like war with them or something. I don't know. I'm not a Disney writer. Just don't make it, about racism in the end. Speaking of racism, the Monsters universe was the Zootopia universe, but enough animals banged the wrong animals, and now you get monsters. You have to prove me wrong. I don't have to prove myself any more right than I already did. The things I like. I'm going to be quick about this, though, because I feel like I've gone on for way too long now, and I don't have a lot from the second movie. Not that I don't like the second movie, it's just that there's things that were in the background of that movie that you were meant to see, whereas in the first movie, nobody was supposed to see Ebola Cola or Primordial Ooze soda. And those things are some of my favorite things. The monsters use inefficient tech like CRT screens and Nixie tubes and all sorts of just not great stuff. That's probably why they have a screen shortage. There's a lot of an older script in this movie, a lot about a refinement process. In one of the original ideas, Sully was actually not a scarer because he was so scared of kids, and he worked at the refinement plant. That's why in the Monsters Inc. commercial, they have a whole, not a whole part, but they mention the refining. They just didn't want to take it out, probably because it was so done in the process, and they liked it so much.
I'm Monsters Incorporated.
Carefully matching every child to their ideal monster to produce superior screen, refined into clean, dependable energy.
I would have honestly really liked to have seen that version, just because Pixar in the early days was just sending out banger after banger, so it would have been still a good movie, it just would have been a lot different. Sully's chair is already damaged, that's probably why he's okay with destroying it more. Monsters Inc. has a jazz fest that's been going on for 3 years, which means it would have started in 98 or 97, depending on the time of year. There are 2 absolutely tiny details that I noticed that could be from maybe they watched the first movie a bunch and they incorporated it a little bit into the second movie as far as character development in this way. I highly doubt it. I think I'm reading too much into this. Mike hypes up Sully because he knows he has confidence issues from when Sully opened up to him in the human world and then after when they go and they're leaving college. Sully goes to Mike with Boo because Mike is the expert on pretty much everything. I know he didn't finish college, but by the time he left college, he was such an expert at scaring and relatively the human world, he knew he could bust back into the monster world with a good scare. Okay, and that's it. And before you put in the comments some of the stupid background shit, like the fact that Nemo is in this before Nemo came out, and Jesse and the ball and the truck, yeah, I fucking noticed. Did you notice that this knife has blood on it? I bet you didn't. Also, side note, my dad fought a bear in college, and when I was 5, we were at a place called Priest Lake. We were renting a cabin, whatever. The park rangers came around and told everybody there's a bear. He tried to coax the bear out of a tree with bacon so he could fight it, and these park rangers kept telling his drunk ass, go back inside.
Hey babe, what's on your mind?
Nothing. Monsters Inc. takes place on May 29th, 2001, and therefore concludes on May 30th. With this information, we can deduce that Monsters University takes place... I'm just fucking kidding, I didn't do that kind of math. I'm pretty sure that Mike has a calendar in his room that I can figure this out on, and I'll add that in here if I can figure out that date right here, but I didn't actually do it. This was a joke. I had no intention of doing this, but then somebody asked me to do it, so. Monsters University takes place in 1992 or 1987, but I'm leaning towards 87 a little bit more, just because that would have been around the time that the people who made Monsters Inc. would have actually been in college. I don't believe it's 89, which was kind of a contender just based on the fact that November is a month beginning on a Sunday, but that would have just been too soon of a time. They wouldn't have had enough time to do everything that they had done at Monsters Inc. The first scene, if all of that is true, most likely takes place in 1969. Therefore, Mike and Sulley are around 32 by the time that Monsters Inc. takes place. Aside from the calendar, I also reason my numbers because we see a Polaroid camera in the mailroom, and this Polaroid only became available in our world between 1988 and 1994. This is the Polaroid Impulse 600, and I know that you might think maybe they bought it in 93 or 94 then, but I think that it's too nice, too new, and too vintage of the look for this specific camera. I could also see the argument for 93 though, being that maybe they bought the camera secondhand and they got it so cheap because they're college dropouts and they're working in the mailroom. So, some of the clips that I posted did well enough that I'm going to make a follow-up video going over some of the things that I either took out of the main video because I wasn't making sense then, or follow-up things that I have noticed since then. Also, I'm going to reply to a bunch of your guys' comments because some of you guys had some pretty golden comments. First, I'm going to go into some of the bits that I did not include in the first video. The numbers on the side of the tank make no sense, and it did not change when the tanks change in size. The sides of the tank says 8400 SUV, and SUV stands for Scream Units of Voltage. It makes sense that their units of voltage do not change when they change to laugh because their grid and all of their systems are probably based on Scream measurements. However, the tanks don't change any of the language on the side. It remains 8400 SUV when they change in size. Now on batteries, from our regular world, you can get various batteries in various sizes that are all 1.5 volt. That's, your AAAs, your AA's, and your C's, all those standard battery sizes. But as soon as you go up to like a bigger battery, that's 9 volts, that's 12 volts. So, given the fact that the tank is so much bigger, you would think that it would have a larger battery capacity. Making this even more confusing is that Screams behave like a gas and are held in a similar tank to a propane tank. I mean, we measure that completely differently. I'm pretty sure there would have been a subplot in the original movie revolved around Sully working at the refinement plant and being exposed to kids' screams so often that it is what made him so scared of kids. I'm guessing that when he hears Boo laugh, it would have made him, extremely confident and whatever. That last bit is 100% speculation by me. They show different tanks with different signage on the side of the tank. The tank that Hardscrabble has says 1400 SUV. Also, look at this dope tank. Doesn't that look cool? That's a sick tank. It's like a Victorian era tank. That's pretty awesome. Randall had to have been holding the rope the entire time at the party. Otherwise, that's lame. He's being lame. Sully didn't want to go to the party because he knew they were going to be jerks, because he is also a jerk at that point. So if they kept the original lineup at the scare games, they may have won without cheating, and that could have been a better version of the movie in general. Randall wasn't going to do that good of a scare just because his roar isn't shit, and that's my personal opinion, but I also feel like the other scarers' scores are reflective of that. The only one who had a good score was Worthington, so if Sully doing a massive jump and growl had fucked up Worthington, and he didn't get a good score, it would have been completely devastating for their team. Mike had a way better shot going up against the big booger dude, because the big booger dude just fucks up, and Mike is all about suspense, so I feel like it would have been a great show that, suspense builds up to a good scare, and that's better than just looking scary. You can scare somebody with a finger puppet, as long as you build good suspense. I also think that it would have worked really well if Mike and Sully both had hype moments within their scare of the other person being like, "You're the man, champ," But they didn't do that. Nobody listens to my fucking ideas, or even asks me. Worthington does the same exact scare as the demon dude. They just jump up on the edge of the bed and go, roar! Why don't they talk to the Abominable Snowman when they see him in the future if he was their fucking boss? If I saw one of my old bosses and he was in hell, I'd be like, "Hey, what's up, man? How'd you get here?" He fucked with the mail. What did he do to the mail, though? Snowman's tie is lemons and popsicles. They have an inhuman resources instead of a human resources. Why wouldn't it just be called Monsters Resources? This leads me to believe they have dealings with humans and they must have a human resources. Probably where they should have taken Boo in the first place. Mike would have been shot by the CDA when he pulled the sock out of his mouth. They would have seen him as gone too far and they would have shot him, used one of those big domes, and exploded his corpse. They had to have 6 bodies in the scare games because of how the final competition is set up. It's 6v6. Some of the things that I actually really enjoyed from the second movie after rewatching it a couple more times with my kid because he loves it so much. I really enjoyed the "we weren't friends before" line that Sully gives to Mike when they're in the human world. As much as this movie is completely void because Mike and Sully have known each other since the 4th grade, I really like this little element of it. Also, the other part of that movie that I just enjoy, I think is a banger, is when they go to the Monster Factory, when they go to MI, and they're looking at all the monsters, and they just get inspired by the fact that none of them are the same. They're all different, just like them. That's, that's good writing for me. The "you're not scary, but you're fearless" line also killer. Like, great, you know? Find your shortcomings, overcome them. I think all in all, the second movie does have some insanely good writing in it, and it is really well made for kids to boost their confidence and stuff, but it's not real, you know? Is Santa real for monsters? He's mentioned 2 times in Monsters University. But wouldn't their version of Santa just be Krampus? Sully's character arc from the second movie to the first movie is unrealistic to me. No one who is that big of a douche in college would completely grow out of it and be this beacon of kindness. No way he ends up saying, "May the best monster win," to Randall. He's doing one of those to Randall when he's on top. Mike is kind of on point though, I'm not gonna lie. This is 100% who that person turns into. He was already kind of a know-it-all, so when he's just number 1 by proxy, it doesn't really matter that he's in Sully's shadow, because he knows and Sully knows that he's the one who's really pulling the strings. Sully is just the meat for the potatoes. I think a lot of the characterizations from the first movie were leftovers from the old script, where Sully wasn't even a scarer, and Mike actually worked for Randall, who was some big hotshot, so Mike's overconfidence probably comes from the fact that he's working with the number 1 all the time. I'm gonna get a sip of my soda. I'm only really adding this in because it's a good transition. As a parent who has had to say goodbye to a kid for an extended period of time through situations that are completely outside of my own control, the scene where Sully says bye to Boo just fucking kills me every time. And obviously, you know, a year later they get it back. But, like, I've avoided talking about the end of that movie because it's just so, gut-wrenching. And it's good feels because it comes right at the end. And in that situation of my own, it became right again. But, yeah, man, that it even hits more home for that. Like, it'll make you sad as a kid, but as an adult, it kicks you right in the teeth. Speaking of things that will break you as a parent, I'm going to be shitting all over The Good Dinosaur for the next movie review, so get excited about that. Suggest some titles for me for this show. The original title that I had in mind was a little problematic, so I need some more ideas. The other 2 that I just posted for the original Monsters Inc. video, they're fine, but we want to hit something really hard tuned, not that one. I'm going to start with some of my favorite replies. A lot of people were on the same page about adult screams being more powerful and maybe even too powerful. Gotta shout out Fish and Colorax because their comments made my brain go into overdrive. I love talking to people about things that mean nothing. I still stand by I think they should have just started scaring adults or given more concrete reason by why they act like kids are toxic. It's something that's just brushed off in the first movie, and they talk about it in the second movie, but kids aren't toxic. None of the human world is. Okay, maybe not none of it, but back to the adults though. Nicholas Evalvi IO9VD said, adults have guns, so no. Which is a fair point. If they already think that kids are toxic and getting hit by a Nerf gun would kill you, then they must have crazy ideas about what actual guns will do. But no, I believe this connects to a Zootopia theory that I have for later. This comment came after those ones. But the monsters do research on the kids that they scare. Monsters come in various shapes and sizes. They match a kid to their ideal monster to get the ideal scream. They must send small or clandestine monsters into the human world to do research. That, I want to point out, would also be a fucking dope movie. They must do research into the adults too, or maybe they have previous files on them from when they were a kid. I believe that they knew that the Camp Teamwork was in Canada. I believe Camp Teamwork was in Canada. I've lived next to a ranger station before, and at least in the US, park rangers be packing. This leads me to believe they have the small monsters, like the ones that we see in the beginning, living under Mike and Sulley's apartment, go into the human world, sneak around, gather data, and bring it back so that way they can make judgment calls on who's worth scaring and not. Some people globbed onto my flawless Zootopia theory. This first comment kind of speaks for itself. But someone else pointed out that there would still be animals in the monster world. Do we all remember who was cutting sushi in the sushi restaurant? That's right, there are still animals in the monster world, which I believe takes my idea, completely out of the realm of theory. It makes even more sense as a sushi chef at probably a very elite restaurant, as the family would want to keep all the recipes and the processes within the family. Also, the Zootopia infrastructure translates perfectly to the monsters. There's a couple that I just mentioned that lives in a tiny apartment next to Mike and Sulley's, and in Zootopia, they have housing, other important city amenities built for gerbils and rodents, creatures of various size. Big shout out to Berg, Kyle, Bedwell, and I Love My GF, plus anybody else who was super supportive. You guys are the type of people that make me want to make these kinds of videos and any content at all. It's kind of a variety hour on my channel. I will be making barrels again soon, but the weather is shit and I am broke. But that'll be the end of this. Please like and subscribe. Share this with your friends on all your own social medias if you would. That would help me out a ton. I'm gonna add a little bit of a break right here. I did it in the script, just so that way I can run any of my subscribers' names. I'll probably just try and blast all of my TikTok followers' names here too. Just, if you follow me, I love you. You're a legend. Thank you so much. So I have more ideas for these, like I said. Help me out with a name in the comments down below. I'm going to cover The Good Dinosaur next, and then onward after that, so I can talk about stories where the dad dies. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. I'm Bill. Have a day.
This kid is Obama.
I look like this because I'm adding on to the add-on video. This is technically like 2.5 of the Monsters Inc. video. You'll never see Original 2 because it's just an unlisted video unless you go and find the link to that, which I encourage you to do. That'd be actually kind of rad.
Okay, this is actually the end of the video, but I have to point something out that I noticed today. Bug's Life is set within the Monsters universe. I think that there's like a theory that all the Pixar movies are set in the same universe somehow or whatever. The trailer that has the city underneath it in Bug's Life is the same trailer that Randall gets the shit kicked out of him in.